it's it's eye-opening to me. I was there with them, and I was walking down the hallways of A&M Records one day when I met George Harrison.
We're about to go crazy. We are so excited to bring to the stream. He is oh my gosh, incredibly talented, the one and only Gary Puckett.
Hi guys, how are you?
We're great. How are you?
Oh, I'm terrific. Thank you very much. It's nice to be on with you guys.
It's such an honor, and of course, we have to compliment you on your beautiful gold records right behind you. What an accomplishment! That's so incredible.
Well, thank you very much. That's a few of them, but yeah, we had a good run at it back then. So they're just little awards that we love.
How modest. All right, Danica, take it away.
All right. Well, first things first, we actually just wanted to ask you about what the music scene was like growing up in and around Yakima.
Well, Yakima was just a hick town, basically, in those days. It wasn't the wine country, that it has become and all that. But, I was a kid and I was interested in learning how to play the guitar. And I was in a little band in high school called the Continentals. I just played guitar and the other three guys sang. So I had no idea that I was going to be a singer one day. But the music scene in Yakima wasn't that big a deal. So it took me going to Southern California for it to start happening.
So was anyone else in your family musical? Where did your musical talent stem from?
Well, they came from my parents, really. The truth is, my dad was a sax player. He sang incredibly well. My mom was a very accomplished pianist, and she sang incredibly well. And that's how they met. They were in a band together in the big band days. I think it was called the Dick Halverson Big Band. And they probably would have chosen to be in the music business, except that tour buses in those days were very drafty and cold vehicles. They didn't have the conveniences of modern tour buses, so they opted for a more traditional life. My dad went into the merchandising business, and they created a family, and we moved from Minnesota to South Dakota and then into Yakima Valley, and then from there down to San Diego in Southern California. So that's where my talents came from. Anyway, I was lucky to inherit the qualities of their voices. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, I remember them sitting me at the piano and saying, "You're going to learn how to play this thing." And I was probably like any, 5 or 6 year old. I'd rather be out in the mud and the dirt and chasing garter snakes.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, at that time, like when I was learning to play the piano, there was a lot of bribery involved. Probably lots of chocolate, to sit down, you play the piano, then I got the snack. But
all over the place.
Yeah. So growing up, in addition to your parents being musicians, was there any musical acts that you were inspired by? Records that you just wanted to listen to over and over again?
Yeah, there were so many of them. And I grew up through the 50s, and the 50s were the beginning really of rock and roll. I mean, R&B was in the 40s, it was coming along, but certainly Elvis was a big inspiration to me. Not that I really tried to be like any of the people that I admired, but I loved the whole, is it okay to say black thing? I loved Fats Domino, and I loved Little Richard, and I loved Chuck Berry and groups before that. I loved, I even loved Pat Boone, and he was so milquetoast, that I loved Gene Vincent. I loved the Everly Brothers, the Coasters, the Platters, just so many of them. Eddie Cochran, there were a lot of great artists in those days that were the creators of the rock music that we know today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Danica, you got to unmute yourself.
Well, we wanted to ask next. So obviously you were Gary Puckett and the Remarkables first, and of course then changed to Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. But were there any alternative possible names that you kind of went through and said, maybe not that one?
Not a one. Not a one. I used the name Remarkables because it was just a working title, and I knew that it was a working title, so I saw no reason to search. It was when we were working in Seattle in a nightclub up there, that I kept on thinking, what is it we're going to do? How do we get out of these nightclubs? Because I wanted to make records. I wanted to go out and work with the current groups if I could, get out on the road and have recordings and have success and all that. But I knew that it was a very, very difficult business to have success in. You had to have champions of the cause, much like today, but we didn't have the communications and all that, that we have today. But I just knew that we should have an image, some sort of an image that was different than everybody else. And I had always had always at that point I was in my early 20s, but I always loved the history of the Civil War period. And I mean, today you can get lost online looking at photos that come from that era, and they're phenomenal. You can see the terribleness of war. You can see a lot of other stuff that's really incredible. And I thought about that, and I looked at the uniforms, and I went, here's a good idea. We can all wear a Union soldier outfit, and we can have ranks, and we can have different hats, and we can look the same but different, and I thought, this is really cool. So I told the band, this is what we're going to do. And the word union was in soldier, Union soldier. And I grew up in Yakima Valley, Union Gap. And I went, Union, that's it, Union Gap. We're going to be called the Union Gap and wear Union soldier outfits. And they laughed for days. They just thought it was the dumbest thing they ever heard. So,
well, who's laughing now? Because obviously it certainly paid off.
It worked. It was, you see, there was a guy in Columbus, Ohio, who was a Civil War historian. I'm kind of jumping ahead of the whole story, of course, but he was a program director and a disc jockey. And I had fought with the record company. That's kind of the wrong word. I negotiated with the record company. I tried to convince them that it was a good idea to put a picture of the band on our record. And this, of course, was after I had found the producer, and he came to see us, and all these different things took place. But they said, we don't do pictures of our new groups. We only do that for successful groups. I said, well, that makes no sense. And I continued trying to convince them. Finally, they relented. We took a picture that was very, very authentic in a school that had been demolished by the wrecking ball. It was in the gymnasium, in the auditorium. That was just all, we were all positioned kind of on the stage, and all the lumber was all over the place, and it was really a wreck, and it looked like we were fighting a war. So this guy who was a disc jockey program director saw it, and he said, this picture, it was done in sepia tone, by the way. Sepia tone?
Yes.
The old brown tone, yeah. And he said, this is a fantastic picture. What does this record sound like? So he played it, loved it, put it on his station as a pick to be successful, and it went to #1. So the picture had something to do with the success of our group. Now, fortunately, I had found a great producer who had a great song in his hand, and he saw me as a great singer, and he put it all together, and of course made an incredibly great record out of it. It was called Woman, Woman, Have You Got Cheating on Your Mind? And to this day, when I get the opportunity to hear it over the airwaves, I still think it's a great record, and it sounds, it sounds current to me. It doesn't sound dated. It's a big band sound with a 60s sort of ID on it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and hearing you sing it, because we've been watching a lot of videos of you recently, and obviously you're performing everywhere. You sound better than ever, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that, because I'm getting to be an old guy.
No. But what do you think has led to your longevity as far as your voice? Because like I said, I think that your voice is just so stunning now. What attributed to that, like the longevity of your voice?
I love your name, by the way, Kid Cadet. May I call you Kid, or do I call you Ms. Cadet? Which is it?
My real name's Heather, so whichever you can pick.
I'll call you Kid. That's
Kid's
cool.
Fine.
The success, I think, is attributed to the combination of the elements. I'm very fortunate to have all of my fans from those days still love the records, and they still love my voice, and they still love to come and see me, and they still love to sing along, you know. So I think it's the combination of the song, the recording, my voice, etc. You know, and the fans just support us continually. So I don't take too much credit for it, other than the fact that I sang the song.
Fair enough. I mean, I was even going to mention Young Girl was recently in Licorice Pizza. So, I mean, that has to feel pretty wonderful knowing, like you mentioned, your songs are still current, still relevant. So what is that like for you to hear your music in these newer movies?
Well, it's exciting. You know, I mean, I feel fortunate when those things happen. You know, I think in a few years, last recent years, it was Glee that put together Young Girl and Don't Stand So Close to Me, you know, by Sting.
Interesting mashup,
and I just thought that was fantastic what they did, you know. So I love that they identify. And what they said was, if you listen to the lyrics, they're not really so very different. They really kind of have the same import, you know. So I'm glad to be in the same let's call it class with Sting, who I'm a great fan of. He's an incredibly talented man, you know. So it feels good. It feels good.
Awesome.
Well, I'm going to pivot just a little bit here, but so you've performed on Ed Sullivan, Merv Griffin, Johnny Carson, Disney, even at the White House. So we got to know, who has the best catering?
Who has the best what?
Catering.
Oh, the best.
The important questions, Gary.
Yeah, people need to know.
Yeah, that's what we always say at sound check. Let's get to the important things, like dinner. Who has the best catering? I don't, you know, you have to know that being at the White House is going to be pretty spectacular to begin with. And they had all the stellar people, you know, of politics, a lot of the Hollywood sorts who were the friends of the political sorts, etc. And of course, that performance was for Prince Charles and Princess Anne, you know. So that in itself was kind of stunning, and it was great to do that. You know, we had two different stages on the main stage, and I had worked with many times with Burton Cummings and the Guess Who. But that evening, working, you know, across from him was really, really a lot of fun, because I loved him. I loved his voice. I loved all of his records. And the guys in his band treated us as equals. And I thought that was pretty cool, because they were a great rock ballad kind of band, you know. So pretty good foodies at the White House, though.
I would have to assume. Was there a moment, like Danica just mentioned all of these, like especially Ed Sullivan? I mean, you know, so many incredible acts that have performed in the Ed Sullivan Show, but was there a particular moment for you that you're like, wow, like this is really happening?
Well, those moments did happen. I can think of one where, after we had the #1 success in Columbus, Ohio, Columbia Records called me and they said, we want to bring you to Cleveland, because that's where the regional office of Columbia Records was or is. And from there, they serviced all their radio stations, rather. And they said, we want to bring you here to this market, because we believe now that we have a #1 in Columbus, we can make this a hit around the world, you know. So I said, let's go. So I was riding in the car with the promotion man. His name was Steve Popovich, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But we were riding along, and he was pushing the AM buttons to all the stations that they serviced. And on came Woman, Woman. And I just went, that's a pretty amazing feeling to know that you've finally succeeded in getting that on the air, you know, not just on a tape, but on the air. So that was a pretty great feeling. Those things can happen. Yeah.
Wow. And also, I mean, not just, you know, in Columbus and Ohio, but worldwide. I mean, obviously you guys were huge in the UK as well. So what do you think led to your popularity as well overseas and internationally?
Well, once again, you know, I really had only to do with it that I was in the process of making those records, and people loved the songs. They loved the records. hopefully they loved my voice, and,
Fair.
and that's what I attribute it to. The fans got together and loved it, and simply have stayed with me all these years, though they somehow kind of lost track of it all in the 70s. And you guys weren't there, so you don't know about that. But, the young people like you were busy making careers, busy making families, and they sort of lost touch with the music every day. And it was in the early 80s, in fact, late 70s, early 80s, that they started realizing that they missed their music. So they started calling upon the artists to come back and play that music. So it was all regenerated, because a lot of the music of our generation really is spectacular, and I think it'll live on for many years. I'm pretty proud of the music. I'm not so proud of the era sometimes, just because we've brought some things to the surface that maybe should be left alone.
Fair.
But,
I said fair. I mean,
yeah,
that could be said for a lot of eras, unfortunately. It happens. But
yeah.
well, one of the things we wanted to talk to you about was another previous guest that we had on the show was Peter Noon, who we love, obviously, from Hermits. And we wanted to know about your time getting to work with him, tour with Peter Noon. Any good Peter Noon stories?
Peter is wonderful. He's a good friend. He and his band, I and my band, know each other well. We worked together many, 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 many times. We just did 2 dates with him in South Florida. And it's always spectacular. It's always fantastic. Peter is a showman beyond compare. The guy knows how to put on an incredible show. So we usually open the show for him, because trying to close a show for him after he's done his show is pretty impossible.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Love the guy, love his players. He's always on stage, Peter. You got that from him when he was on with you, I'm sure, because he can tell you stories for days on end, and they're all great, funny stories.
Yeah, he's a lovely, lovely person.
Yes, he is.
So Denise actually has a question. They want to know if you'll ever write a book about your life.
Well, I have to tell you that there's somebody that keeps after me. In fact, brings a memory to mind. I was at my own airport, and I was about to get on a plane and go wherever I was going. And I walked to the gate, and sitting there, I look down and I see Joey D of Joey D and the Starlighters, and he's a family friend for many years. And so I said, "Hey, Joey, what's happening?" He sat down with him and we started talking. He says, "You know what? I'm trying to write my book, and I'd like to know if you know anybody that would know how to do that." And I said, "I just might." So I put him in touch with somebody, and they did write the book, and it is pretty good, a darn good book. And the same guy has kind of been after me, so I'm getting closer and closer to it. I just keep telling people I don't think I can remember it all.
Well, I think that's one of you bring in a writer and then they help you recall different memories, right? I mean, I think
that's really true. That's what I'm getting closer to all the time. So yes, it will happen. I just don't know when, probably sooner than later.
Fabulous. Okay, well, that's good news. That's what we need. Good news. Good news. All right. Danica?
All right. Well, I'm apparently just the pivoter tonight. So I'm just going to pivot one more time. Well, yes. Okay. So we noticed in some of the digging that we were doing that you also have a bit of a theater past. So we wanted to know a little bit more about any favorite roles that you've had in theater, and if you've had any dream roles that you haven't gotten to play yet that maybe someday you'd like to.
I doubt that my theater career is going to climb. It started way back when in the 70s. I started going to some acting classes with a guy by the name of Jeff Corey, and Jeff Corey was the West Coast counterpart to Lee Strasberg, who was the East Coast guy. Yes, you know who that is. And Jeff was lesser known, but he was well known on the West Coast, and he worked with everybody from Jack Nicholson to Marilyn Monroe to, on and on, just many, many incredible talents. And I thought, I'd like to get in and give my hand and give a try at this. And so I did, and Jeff accepted me into the classes, which were difficult to get into. But I was the only one that was an aspiring actor, but also a musician. And I remember auditioning for him, and he said, "I understand you're a singer, and would you sing for me?" So a cappella, I sang him a tune, and he says, "Oh, you have a lovely voice." Well, I studied with him, and he got a call from a fella that wanted to make a movie in the Philippine Islands. And so the fellow from the Philippines hired a producer in Los Angeles. And this guy called Jeff and said, "Do you have any actors that are musicians?" And Jeff said, "I only have one guy, just one guy." So Jeff called me and he said, "Call this man and talk to him." And it was a movie called Dynamite that they were going to make in the Philippines. And I thought, this is maybe a great opportunity. So I went to audition for this film, and I kind of dressed bizarrely and, acted a little weird. And the other guy that was auditioning for the part was Sal Mineo. Do you remember who Sal Mineo was? And
I don't.
at any rate, somehow I got the part. I don't know how that was. So I went to the Philippine Islands for about 6 months, and it was an amazing experience to work with all these people making this movie. But I think in the end, though we had a great experience and did a lot of great work, I wrote all the music with my brother for the film and had the lead role, and we got the movie in the can, I thought. But the family that was funding the movie ran out of money. So I don't think it was ever finished. So,
Oh no.
So theater I never really got to do. I did audition for Jesus Christ Superstar in New York City and almost got the part, but but almost ain't, as they say.
Fair, but
Yeah.
what if it's great? I
Yes.
mean, it's one of my favorites of all time. So
All right. But so now stage for me is playing the music and telling the stories and using that as my theater.
point taken. Yes. So we kind of wanted to ask your opinion. Obviously, we know that there was something so incredible about the 60s that's just, stayed with us forever, and it'll keep going and going and going. Do you feel like there's something, maybe, I don't want to necessarily say missing, but what would you say is maybe a difference between music in the rock and roll scene today versus music from the 60s? Do you think maybe it lacks characters, like a cohesiveness as far as outfits, or I don't know.
You're wanting to compare the two?
I don't know if you necessarily can, but do you think that there's something lacking about maybe current artists trying to make it these days versus in the 60s?
No, I think that today it's there's just more avenues. Young people can make a record in their garage, in their house, in their bedroom. They can promote it on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and it can be picked up. They can do TikTok. There's many ways to do it, and we didn't have those things. And most everything is done today digitally, which is pretty cool. It doesn't have the warmth that analog had, but that's, who really cares? You still can make great records, and a lot of people do. I'm talking to somebody right now that would like to make some more records with me, and I'd like to add to my musical legacy, as it were. So looking forward to that. In fact, I have a new CD out there that's called Love Songs, and it's songs of the rock groups of the 80s.
Ooh.
Like Whitesnake and others, Journey and Heart and whatever. And I played all the guitar on it just to satisfy my rock and roll beginnings and all that kind of stuff. But you can find it at my website, GaryPuckettMusic.com. Anyway, I think everybody would love it. I think it's a great album, and I'd love to get it out there to all you fans.
Love Songs, you said.
Love Songs, it's called. It's on my website.
Fabulous. Awesome. Danica?
Well, you've been obviously so incredibly successful and accomplished in your professional career. But what would you say is your biggest personal accomplishment?
Oh, well, I have a wonderful family. My wife, Lori, who's beautiful at 62. Our daughters, Michaela, who is a pediatrician and doing quite well. She has 3 children, our 3 grandchildren, Brandon, Bentley, and Brooklyn. And our younger daughter, Sydney, who is also married, and she has a 9-month-old. Eleanor Rose is the most beautiful little sweet child I have ever seen in my life. As an infant, for instance, we took her to Costco yesterday, and we shopped and shopped and shopped, and she was quiet and just looked around all day long. So I'd say my family is my greatest accomplishment. You know, I mean, I don't look to have awards and write the greatest songs, though I have written some pretty good songs. But my family is a good accomplishment for sure.
Awesome. Jude wants to know, what's the best piece of advice that you've received from a peer or someone you looked up to, either when starting out or even during your career?
Well, one of the best pieces of advice, and it came from a few people, but mostly from my wife: don't take yourself too seriously. Be serious about what you're doing, you know, and be the best at what you are doing. Work hard at it. Be the best guitar player. If you're a singer, if you need to study voice. If you're a songwriter, get involved in songwriting and understand it. Write the best songs you can possibly write. Those sorts of things are what you need to do in my opinion. Don't be too serious about yourself and take everything not with a grain, but be able to laugh at yourself. It was a long time before I could really do that, you know, and I was always my own worst critic. So finally, I've been able to kind of laugh through a lot of different things, and it helps the happiness factor.
Fair enough. I'm sure it's helped in the past couple of years when things have been a little, wonky with the world. I think what we need is laughter.
It's been a little weird, hasn't it?
It's a little slightly different. Okay, so we wanted to ask you, obviously you're an accomplished musician, but we wanted to know, what is something that you would be terrible at? What job would just not be for you, Gary?
Well, I can tell you the job that I do as a part of what I do that, I'm okay at and probably pretty good at, but I hate so much that I would not be good working for somebody else doing it. And that's the logistical stuff of what we do. It's the booking the tickets. It's the, it's the hotels and the flights and the cars and all that kind of stuff. But, if I wasn't a musician, I'd rather be a ski bum, I think, and teach people to ski, or be a tennis bum and teach people tennis, that kind of thing.
So you're a sportsy guy, huh?
Well, yeah, I grew up a skinny little kid, though. I was born in October, and that was just perfect for them to let me into school too early. So I was really kind of a year ahead of everybody. And as far as mental capacity, there was no real difference between me and my classmates, but physical capacity, I was a year behind them, really, And so I was a little bitty kid, and every time I'd try out for sports or something, I'd end up sitting on the bench only because I couldn't hit the ball as far. Yeah.
Yep. You're amongst friends.
But I love sports in that regard. I mean, because I was a skinny little kid and, couldn't be successful at team sports, I gravitated to the singular sports, the running, the jumping, the tennis, the racquetball, scuba, skiing, tennis, and bowling, that kind of stuff. So, but I love sports in a lot of ways, but I'm just not the same kind of sports fanatic that most guys, particularly, and a lot of women are.
Fair enough. I mean, hey, I love bowling too. I'm just terrible at that as well. So we try. All right. So we got a couple more questions, and then we have a game that we're going to play. So Danica, you ask one more. I'll ask one more, and then we'll go to
All right. So we actually just wanted to mention that we know you're going to be a guest DJ on Sirius XM's 60s on 6 starting on Monday the 11th. So just wanted
Yeah,
to, there you go.
that's great. Thank you for figuring
Yeah,
that
so-
out. Yeah.
So how did you get in touch with that, and what are you most looking forward to about that?
Well, it was fun to do. I did one before. I think it was just a couple years ago, maybe even less. And they liked it a lot. So they said, well, why don't you do another one? I said, okay, I'd be glad to. So it's me playing the music that I was impressed with and I loved, telling a few stories along with it, So I kind of look forward to hearing what the fans have to say about it, So you guys get in touch with me and tell me what you think after you've heard.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my dad, as we were like setting up for this stream tonight, like called me right before we signed on. He's like, they're announcing Gary Puckett. He's gonna be on 60s on 6. And I'm like, I know, we're gonna talk to him about it. He's
Cool.
very excited. What's like one of the first songs that you're excited to play? Or spin, or whatever we're going to call it. Yeah.
You know what? It's been in the can, as they say, I think for a couple of months. So I'm not really sure. I'm not looking at it right now. I don't have the show in front of me, but I think the first thing I said was that the Beatles could create controversy at any bend in the road, and they did so with one chord. And it starts out, bling, it's been a hard day's night, So I love the Beatles, I love the Stones, I love all the music that you guys are loving right now. So I look forward to hearing that. I look forward to doing another one, as a matter of fact.
Ooh, well, we hope that you do. Since you mentioned the Beatles, did you have the opportunity to watch the documentary that they put out a couple months ago?
I have not yet, but I am definitely going to watch that because it's it's eye-opening to me. I was there with them, and I was walking down the hallways of A&M Records one day when I met George Harrison. And that's a good memory for me, shaking hands with the guy. Ringo invited me on stage for his all-star band, and sang with a little help from my friends. And Michael McDonald was there, and a couple of other notables, So those kind of he came over and he grabbed my hand and he said, "You're from San Diego, aren't you?" I'm sure that everybody in the audience thought we were close buddies at that point, but it was one of those great neat moments. Oh, and by the way, I heard John Lennon sing "Young Girl." Have you heard that?
No, for really?
Yeah, it's somewhere on, but I remember it was an interview with one of the old news guys, from back in their day, and a friend of mine sent me the link and said, "You got to watch this." So I did, and after about 3.5 minutes, I'm going, "Why am I watching this? I mean, great interview, but why?" And then John breaks into "Young Girl, Get Up," and I went, "Okay, that's pretty cool."
I'm gonna have to try to find that. Oh my gosh, yeah,
I think you can.
I'm going to. It is my mission. And so one of the final things we wanted to talk to you about is obviously you have a big tour coming up. I believe it's with the Turtles. So we wanted to know what you're most looking forward to about being back on tour again.
Well, it's always fun. It's like Old Home Week or Old Home Summer. We're going to do 55 cities this summer with the Buckinghams, the Vogues, the Association, and the Cowsills, and of course the Turtles. And it's always fun. It's a great show. It's well done. It's well rehearsed, and the fans, they fill the venues every night. They sing the songs, and it's always a very high feeling to know that our fans still love the music that we gave to them all those years ago, and they support us and they smile and they come and they look for autographs, and so it's all good. It's a great tour.
I hope I get to see it because I know you're playing in Tampa. We live right by Coral Springs where you played with Peter Noon, and that was the one weekend, of course, we were out of town because that's how it happens. I know, so we're gonna have to try to come see this one. We're very excited. So,
well, they can find all of the dates are posted on my website, GaryPuckettmusic.com. So if you were able to make the first date, that's in Clearwater. We will be, I think, in Melbourne at some point. Just go look at the dates; they're on there now.
Awesome. I will. Yeah, I think Clearwater was the one we were looking at. But
Right.
Okay. So we have a game we want to play. This is a game of would you rather. There is no wrong answers. Whatever you pick is the correct answer. So we're going to bring up some options for you, Gary. So let's see. Would you rather write a concept album about your last vacation, or write a concept album about Clearwater's hot spots?
Oh, I think it'd be about my last vacation. Yeah, definitely.
Where'd you go? Anywhere cool?
Um, where was my last vacation? We've been locked up for 2 years, so. But I can tell you that I'm taking my wife, and we're going to go with a couple of friends of ours from Southern California, and we're leaving May 2nd, and we are going to France for 3 weeks, taking a little river cruise and driving around the south of France, and just looking and being with the people, and hopefully learning a word or two. So yeah, last vacation. We love Italy. We've been there half a dozen times. We've done a couple of cruises in the Mediterranean. Those are always fantastic, visiting the Greek Isles, that kind of thing. And where else? I don't know. Time goes by.
Yeah, that it does. Well, have the best time. That's so exciting. And
Thank
we're
you.
both very jealous. All right. Danica, next one.
All right. Would you rather collaborate with Elton John or collaborate with Lady Gaga?
You make that difficult. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yes.
Lady Gaga is so superior. She's just wonderful. But I've been a huge Elton fan all of my life, so I think I'd have to say Elton because he's a spectacular talent, and the way he plays and songs they write. It'd have to be Elton, I think.
Awesome. Good choice. Great choice. All right.
Thank
Here's
you.
the next one. Okay. Would you rather own a guitar that belonged to Carl Perkins or own a guitar that belonged to Chuck Berry?
Hands down, Chuck Berry. I'm a huge Chuck Berry fan, but I love Carl as well. It is a 1 for the money, gone, a 2 for the show. Loved that stuff. He was great, but Chuck, he was stellar. That's my word for the day. Chuck was stellar.
It's a good word. All right.
Yeah.
Next one, Danica.
All right. Would you rather perform in the last play you saw at the theater or perform with the first musician you ever saw live?
Oh my goodness, I'd have to perform with the first musician I ever saw live, and that would be Gene Vincent. Bebop-a-lula, she's my baby. Bebop-a-lula, I don't mean baby. Yeah, Gene Vincent.
Woo. And you sing that so good too. Oh
So
my
good.
gosh. All right. Woo. Okay. Here's the next one. Would you rather spend a year performing at sea or spend a year in Vegas doing a residency?
Ouch. I've done a lot of time in Vegas, and I have done probably more time on cruises. I think I'd have to do a residency in Vegas because I can get cabin fever pretty easy, though we have done some You see, back in the early, when was it? It was in the early 2000s, I think, or maybe in the late 90s. The Caribbean, Royal Caribbean Cruise Line hired me for like 22 cruises in a row. They would bring me on a Wednesday, and I'd do a show for those cruisers, and then we'd stay on when all those people got off and the new people got on. We'd do a show for them, and then on the Wednesday they'd put me on another ship. So my wife and I saw 22 cruises in a row, and I kind of got cruised out, though we really had a spectacular time.
You got your sea legs. I could. Woo, that's a long time.
Certainly did.
Wow. All right. We got 2 more. All right, Danica.
All right. Can't blame me for that. So would you rather perform the national anthem at a Washington's game or perform the national anthem at a Tampa Bay game?
Well, I live in Clearwater, Florida, and Tampa Bay is just, Tampa itself is only 24 miles due east of our house, and we're big fans of the Buccaneers, and certainly with Brady being there, I'd love to sing the national anthem at a Tampa Bay game. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, well, we're putting it out there in the universe that it should definitely happen next season. So,
Okay, let's work on that.
Yes, we shall. All right. And the final one. Gary, would you rather switch set lists for a night with Peter Noon or switch set lists with the Turtles?
That's really a tough question because I love both of their songs. Peter's got some terrific songs, but so do the Turtles, and I've sung a lot of the Turtles' music, some of Peter's music, and that's impossible. I'd have to put the two lists together and do
Oh.
all of their songs together. That's my answer to you.
Okay, and that is allowed because
That's called
this is-
option C, and that's always an answer.
Yep, it's an answer. It's an answer. All right. Well, Gary, thank you so much. This has been such an honor. We can't even begin to tell you how much we appreciate you being on our stream with us. Before we do let you go, any final thoughts you want to leave us with here?
Well, let's see. What am I missing, honey? Final thoughts. God bless you all. God bless you guys for what you do. I know you entertain all of your fans out there worldwide, and I'm just so pleased to come on here and be here with you. I hope all the fans will go and check out the guest DJ spot on Sirius XM channel 73, I believe it is, and go pick up a copy of that Love Songs album. We also have all the greatest hits and all that kind of stuff from the Union Gap. So I'm just grateful to be here. God bless you.
Thank you. And once again,
We
make
are
sure
so
you also
honored.
yes, make sure you also check out all of the tour dates. I know a lot of people in the comments were commenting what day they're coming to see you.
Oh,
So,
good. I'm glad to hear that.
hopefully we'll all get to be there as well. Before we let you go, we're going to go over our upcoming guests that we have coming up for April and going into May. So on Thursday, we have the phenomenal Dee Wallace from E.T. and Cujo. Next Tuesday, we're welcoming back Casey Jost from Practical Jokers. The following Thursday, we have Kevin Mellon. And then down the line, we have David Cook from American Idol. We have voice actor David Sobolov. We have Phoenix Cavalieri from The Young Rascals will be joining us. We also have Jason Marsden, Megan Lindsay, so much more. Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you. This has been such an honor.
You're welcome. I just worked with Felix. It was good to see him.
Oh, okay. We'll have to talk about that for sure.
Tell him I said hello.
I will definitely relay that message. So,
All right.
all right.
Nice meeting you guys.
It's such an honor. All right, everybody watching. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your night, and we'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye, everybody.
Hey, bye-bye.